Welcome to the Spiritually Led meeting. Each week we are honored to host powerful speakers from around the world, sharing their stories, experiences, and hope with us. All of our speakers are recorded and shared through our Enogram YouTube channel and our audio speaker WhatsApp groups, so the message can reach those who need it. If you're listening to this recording and you're struggling, seeking help, or simply have a question, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can contact us anytime at spirituallit24@gmail.com, and we promise to get back to you. Tonight, we've invited NEC to share her experience on the topic Pass It On for the next 45 minutes. After that, the meeting will be opened for sharing back. Annie, we will give you a sign 10 minutes before the time's up, and also you'll see a timer in the corner of my screen. Thank you so much for making the time coming on to share your experience with us. And with that, I'll hand it over to you. See where you're at. Thanks. Left. I see her. Yeah, there you go. I ask you to unmute now. Yeah. Should work. Yeah, almost. Still muted.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Annie, and I am an alcoholic and an addict. Thank you, Nick, for reaching out to me and setting this up. I haven't done any of these international meetings yet. My husband has, and our good friend Kenny Cross, I know, is on all the time. So it's really fun for me to be able to see you guys and hear the reading and the message and the format, which is different than what we do. Pass it on. I absolutely love this topic. You'll see my shirt, got my high from H&I. So that's a big part of my story, part of how I pass it on that I'll talk about. So first, just, a little bit to qualify. My sobriety date is May 2nd, 1985. So this past May, I celebrated 40 years, which is entirely incomprehensible in every way. I can, remember like it was yesterday when I was 24 years old, walked into these rooms, was scared of my own shadow, and was, gonna die. So I got here really, really willing, which is a gift, a complete gift. I started drinking and using when I was 13, and I was a blackout drinker from the get-go. So that created a lot of, shall we say, incomprehensible demoralization as a young teenager, and blacking out from there until I was 24. I also did every drug that I was given. Pills, I put my hand out, whatever was put in there is what I took. I didn't ask, I don't know. I had no brain. I had no regulation. I just was, I just loved, getting loaded, getting out of myself. Cocaine was a blessing for me, because that's the drug that brought me to this program, that brought me to my knees, that brought me to the brink of just wanting to kill myself. I got arrested for drunk driving when I was 21. And so I had to go to a court-appointed program, which is where I first heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had to go to meetings, and I had to go to a program every Saturday morning. And at that program, they had a list on the wall of 20 questions if you were an alcoholic. And, I answered maybe all but one yes. But I thought I'm really smart and I'm really young, so there's no chance I'm an alcoholic, because alcoholics are old men on Skid Row. Definitely not me. But if I think I might have this problem, now I'll just drink differently, right? And I'll do my drugs differently, because now I'm aware and it'll be okay. And that obviously was not the case. So for the next 3 years, trying to control and enjoy and balance my, my drugs, the alcohol, the up and down, and the blackouts just got worse and worse. They started earlier. I was drinking all day at home, going to work every day, but just a wreck anytime after that. So by the time I was 24, I was really isolated from my friends, from my family, and I felt like I was just tired of trying to fit in. It felt like everybody else kind of knew how to do this thing, and I just didn't. I just couldn't find my way, and I couldn't change. I kept wanting to be better. I kept wanting to be different, and I could do that for 5 minutes, and then all of it was back. So I just felt tired. I just didn't want to fight anymore. I didn't want to do it. That particular night, as it so happened, I didn't have enough pills to make it all stop. And I never thought of doing it any other way. So, the next morning I wake up and I'm just, depleted. And someone that I worked with, her husband was in treatment. So I went to her and I said, I have the same problem your husband has. Can you help me? So she drove me to a hospital here. And I basically turned myself in, right? And I went to the outpatient program there. So I went 3 nights a week, and then every day I had to go to work, and I was raw and and devastated. And alcohol and drugs gave me lots and lots of bravado. And I was tough, and I fought all the time. I fought with guys, I fought with girls, I was crazy. And then you take all that away from me, and I don't even know who I am or how to talk or what to do. So that transition was really hard. But like I said, for some unbelievable reason, I was given the gift of desperation. I truly wanted to die before I got here. And when I went to that treatment room and I raised my hand for the first time and said, my name is Annie and I'm an alcoholic, I felt like I had a chance, like there was hope for the first time in my life. I don't know why, but that's how I felt. So that started my journey, and I was only going to AA, never even heard of CA. So going to AA, I remember the first time they asked me to stand up and read. I was shaking so bad, could barely get through the reading, like, ay, ay, ay. And, so being part of it and trying to feel like I was joining and being a part of it was really hard for me. So I knew from the beginning that I had to sit in the middle. I had to get in the middle of the circle, because where I wanted to be was in the back row, and I wanted to leave at every coffee break. I hated coffee breaks because I didn't know what to do with myself. So in order to not do that, I had to, not sit by the back. I had to just sit on my hands and not leave when I wanted to, and show up no matter how I felt. I found a sponsor who, as God would have it, knew like what felt to me like a million people. And so just tagging along with her, I started, being introduced to people, not comfortable, not feeling like, oh yeah, let me just socially get in here. No, but I did it. And, going to sober birthday parties, where of course I wanted to, run out the back, because now we're in a social situation. We're not even in a meeting that's structured. But again, I went. And my sponsor happened to be of service for the San Fernando Valley AA convention. So in my first year of sobriety, I found myself in the hospitality room at our convention where everybody came through that room because, and they had to come to me to get a ticket to get something to drink or eat. So it was the best job I ever had because I could feel safe and secure that I had something to do, and people came to me. So it was just like this beautiful little comfort place for me to be of service, to feel secure, and to let this happen. And I also, in the very beginning, went on panels. So my sponsor told me that you cannot turn down an AA request, which was a good thing for me because, again, I always wanted to say no because of my fear and my fear. So to have that in my mind and to know I just couldn't get out of anything I wanted for no reason, helped me show up. Somehow, I was willing to be teachable when I got here. And I was not perfect, and I was still a rebel, and I still had all those old actions and feelings. But somehow I was willing to find one person, my sponsor, that I would be as honest with as I possibly could be, and that I would take her direction as well as I could. So my first panel was a men's prison out here, which was, I still remember like the trauma and the fear and the uncomfortableness of going on that panel. But I did it. I did it. And the thing about being of service and why we made these got my high from H&I, and I stand up at every meeting when I talk about H&I, and I tell everybody, I guarantee you, this is a high you will get every time. My high stopped working. Trying to chase cocaine, Quaaludes, Valium, whatever drug it was, and the alcohol, I could never get it again. Being of service, every time I am done being of service, I have that high, that euphoria, that feeling of just incredible. So, going on these panels, the other thing is going to the panel, right? Driving with people, talking all the way there. And then after, feeling that incredible sense of belonging and what it means to give it away. I was also of that generation that you got to give it away to keep it. And so all of these things were ingrained in me in my early sobriety. I was of service in meetings. I was a secretary of a meeting, coffee commitments, all of those things to make sure I got there. Because again, coming home from work or on a weekend, I don't really want to go to a meeting. I'd rather do this, I'd rather do that. But having that commitment obviously helps us to show up. And of course, after I leave the meeting, I feel 100 times better, and I'm always glad that I went. So that part of my journey is what started helping me understand what recovery I had. Working with my sponsor, doing the steps, doing an inventory, all of those things made me feel good and made me feel a part of. But it didn't make me feel secure that I had anything really to give. And so I would continue to call my sponsor and tell her all about my problems. Me. This is wrong. This is happening. Blah, 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 blah. Me. And she eventually lost her patience with me. And she said, "Did you call a newcomer today?" I said, "No. Aren't you listening to my story? This is what's going on with me." And she said, "You know what? call a newcomer and then call me back, click. And, I was pissed off. How dare she say that to me? But I followed her direction. And what I realized is, of course, I was just still so self-centered because it was all about me. And I was afraid and I didn't believe I had anything to give, like I said. So by her forcing me to change my behavior, to try something different, to start reaching out one-on-one, and then really understanding that even though I was new, even though I was a mess, I still had something to give the person who was newer than I was. And that feeling of connection was amazing. And also, it started to build my foundation of self-esteem and confidence and the belief that maybe this program was actually working. Maybe these steps are actually changing me. And so, every bit of that early feeling of not fitting in, being uncomfortable, all the same things that got me here, it didn't go away right away. And not even that it's gone away now completely. I'm human. I still have all of these feelings, but I have learned over these years how to move forward anyway, in spite of how I feel. So I'm not paralyzed anymore. That's for sure. I am not paralyzed by my fear. No matter how big it is, I know that action and using the tools that I have will move me forward, and that I will get to the other side, and that fear and feelings have never killed me. And it is a space, but I can get to the other side. I heard somebody say really early on, the only way out is through. And I used to take the side door every time because I'd hit that feeling. I'd say, I don't like this, and I'm out. And that keeps me stuck in the muck and makes me go down lower. So knowing that I had to get through it and keep walking is what changed my life. And I have never forgotten these things. I do today what I did then, because that is what keeps me sober every day. The difference between my 40 years and whatever time everybody else has is just today, is just right now. Yesterday is yesterday. What am I going to do today to maintain my spiritual connectedness and my feelings? And that for me is staying connected to the program, going to meetings, talking to my sponsor, working with others, being of service. All of those things is the box that keeps me safe. So let's see. I got way off on where I was going with all that. So working with others, growing. And at the meeting that I was secretary of, there was this really cute guy there. And relationships for me were really toxic and really deadly. That was one of the things that I could not continue with in order to protect my sobriety. So I stayed out of a relationship for the first year. I didn't want to have to go. I didn't want to be locked out of a meeting because that guy was there and there was a problem and I couldn't go there anymore. And I wasn't willing to risk that. So I stayed out of a relationship. I just had a group of friends and learned how to be comfortable with me and even figure out, what does a relationship mean? What does it look like? What is a characteristic? Because I always judged everybody by how they looked and what they had. That's it. And, that got me in the toilet every time. So understanding that there were, things about people that I wanted to attract and to have in my life. So I did a lot of that work, and after 2 years of sobriety, this cute guy is at this meeting, and we start talking and we start dating, and he goes to CA. And, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can go there. I'm in AA. And, it's so funny how we think, but, it was new to me. I didn't know it. And of course, cocaine is what brought me to my knees. So, why wouldn't I? And so we did. And the beautiful thing about CA 40 years ago in the San Fernando Valley is it was brand new. CA in LA had started, I think, the year before, 80, I don't know, I don't remember, but a couple years, whatever. CA in LA was already going. We didn't have our own central office in the San Fernando Valley. And this cute guy that I met named Bob C., he wanted to start it in the Valley. So him and Helene and a few other people started central office here in the San Fernando Valley, and that created all of these areas to be of service in a huge way. And so I was able to help start H&I in the San Fernando Valley. And my role was to be the panel board chair. And so I had to go out and get treatment centers to allow us to come in and bring our panels. And so I had a whole sheet of what I had to say. I had the whole packet. I had to dress, respectfully and walk in there and, present myself and sit on the other side of a desk from the program director and introduce CA and what we want to do. And I am still shaking in my boots, but I did it. And who knew that later I would spend my entire career in sales, being in front of hundreds of people, talking, motivating, all of these things that I would never have thought I could do. And how did I start? By taking this commitment, showing up and doing something that I had no idea how to do. But there was a guide, I followed it, and that's how we started San Fernando Valley H&I. I am back with H&I a few years ago because after COVID, it was tanking and we were on the verge of losing everything we had. We had very few panels left. There was some, challenges with people who were it was just kind of a mess. So I jumped right back in, and I love it. I have met so many new friends now through H&I that I adore. And I couldn't imagine not knowing them. And had I not said yes to this commitment, I would just still be in my little circle, I guess. So the beauty is that it hasn't changed the feeling and the benefit and the love and the growth from being of service is still so exciting and so wonderful to me. So being of service, starting H&I in CA, being part of some fundraisers that this guy, Bob C., also loved to put on. And so I would be of service in there, never knew how to do an event, never had a commitment. And, doing marathons, staying up all night long without any drugs or alcohol, and managing and checking on the marathons and being a part of that, and having that feeling of being tired but being so fulfilled and so happy. So different than staying up all night and being sick and having to take more drugs to keep going. But all of that yuck is replaced by unbelievable feelings. So eventually this guy, Bob C., and I got married. And just yesterday, we celebrated 35 years of marriage. And, again, it's been a long life. Like 35 years is a long road. And when we talk about we don't drink or use no matter what, and I don't run no matter what, but there's a lot of no matter what's, right? There's a lot. And, I always kind of describe it that sometimes it feels like the Grand Canyon is between us. And then sometimes that, that invisible bridge where you take one foot because you don't see it, but you step anyway. And there's a step, and then you keep going, and then it comes back together. And, that's life, right? That's what happens. But we put this program first between us. Neither one of us wanted to risk our sobriety over a toxic relationship. So we dated for 3 years before we got married. Our dates were committee meetings for these fundraisers that we were doing. I mean, those were our dates. That's how, dorky we were. But we were scared, and we knew we loved each other. We knew that the values that each one of us had of, keeping our program first, working with others, being dedicated, not losing any of our own journey, but learning how to combine it without just disappearing in each other, which is what I always did before. So it was really lovely to be able to get to know somebody and have that kind of experience together. So that when we did get married, and one of the reasons I didn't want to get sober was because I wanted to drink champagne at my wedding that eventually I would have. Well, we had our big wedding and we drank Martinelli's, and everybody in our sobriety family was there, and it was amazing and beautiful. 4 years after that, we got pregnant, thinking we would have one child, and it ended up to be triplets. The only drug I never took was a fertility drug, but here you go. I guess that's how we roll, right? All or nothing. Mach 5 with your hair on fire. Why change now? So that began our journey there. So being of service, I had to modify what that meant to me once I started having a family. Bob was diagnosed with cancer. When the kids were 2.5, they said he had only 3 to 5 years to live. He's in the other room today. So, that didn't happen. But obviously there's so many challenges. And where did we go when we got his diagnosis? We went to a meeting because we were stunned. And that's what our safe place was, because that's what we created in our life on purpose, right? We didn't do this program at an arm's length. I don't have a life over here and the program over here. I do have a life out of the program, right? I do have a big, healthy circle and people, but it is still at the core, because I know you've heard whatever you put in front of your sobriety, you will lose. And I believe that. And I have seen that. Through these years, we have seen people who stopped being of service, who stopped going to meetings, who thought for some reason they were okay. And unfortunately, they weren't okay. And we know that door doesn't always swing open again. And I have no idea. Oh, I see the timer. So I have 17 minutes. Is that counting down? Got it. Thank you. Again, now I'm old in my thought process, so you got to give me a minute to get back in there. So going to that meeting, feeling secure, that's what we did to get through any crisis. that was in our life. We, years later, our children are 30 now, and the two girls are happy, healthy, living the most beautiful life that a parent could ever hope for. Our son has had a different journey, and that journey has brought us to our knees more than once. It's one thing to be the alcoholic and create havoc in everybody's life, because whatever, I don't really feel it, right? I'm living in my world. I don't know what I'm doing to everybody else, and I don't care. To be the parent of that person, that you love this child more than anything, and to see what the disease is doing, and to know in my core, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can say. There's nothing I can give him. He has to find it himself. That is a ugly journey. It put us into Al-Anon, into parent-focused meetings, which was immensely helpful. And that's really what saved us, because whatever happens to him, my seat, I have to keep my seat, right? My seat is not contingent on if he has a seat. My seat is not contingent on the fact that my mother died, my father died, my sponsor died 7 years ago, who was like my sister for 40 years. But my seat is not contingent on any of those events. Eventually, so now my son just celebrated 5 years of sobriety. He had like a few, and then COVID came and wiped him out, but he started again on his own. Like, I didn't take him anywhere. I didn't do anything. He had enough rehabs. He had enough program, thankfully, that it just switched inside of him. That journey is difficult, because, I want him to have what I have. I want him to do what I do. And that is a really bad thing to try to put my program in the middle of with my son, right? That's no bueno. So I am learning still so much about letting go and, the bondage of self. I realize that I continue to do things out of a good motive, I think, because I want to help somebody or I want to protect somebody, and I justify it, and it still causes chaos. And I'm 65, 40 years sober, and I finally just had that awareness to my core in the most sacred relationships that I cannot do that. And being quiet and backing up has allowed me to feel a sense of peace that I truly needed. I had breast cancer 1 year ago. Luckily, I found it early, found it myself. It was teeny tiny, and they got it out. All I needed was radiation. So I'm so grateful that my journey is the best possible journey that one could ask for with a cancer word. But what it has helped me focus on is the need to feel, to release as much anger and stress in my life as possible. So, that has propelled me to meditate more, to really be willing to search out different behaviors in this one area that can be so toxic for me because I couldn't let go. And all of these things have changed me, continue to change me. And in the middle of some of the last 5 years with our son. He has 3 children with 3 different women, lots of custody issues. Like there's a lot of pain and fear that I have never experienced before. Bob and I have been married. I've never lived through any of these things that we're walking through with him. And so it's been really challenging for me to find my way and stay within my program and use these tools. And that's okay. I don't have to do it perfectly. I just have to do it. But what's funny is in the midst of some things that I'm literally losing my mind. Oh, I have an H&I meeting. I got to show up, right? I'm speaking at a meeting. I got to show up. I'm like, I can't even talk. I can't even put 2 words together. How am I going to do this? But oh my God, the beauty of it, because when I get out of myself, I put all that aside because I had to, and there was peace there. Like, what an awareness that I didn't have to stay in that tunnel, in that dark, dark spiral. I stepped out because I had to, because I had a commitment, and I found unbelievable peace, joy, and light was actually there and available to me in spite of how that feeling felt like it was completely engulfing me. So again, the benefit of being willing to be of service and to have commitments no matter what is going on in your life. The women that I have sponsored and the ability to sit with them and work the steps and go through the book, and see the light come on in their eyes and see their life change is the most special gift ever. Because it's hard to see sometimes it's hard to see the progress that we're making in our own life. And it's easy to see it in someone else. And that gives me the awareness that, yes, it's happening for all of us. And I love the promises from the very beginning. When I sat in meetings and heard those promises read, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, because the fact that we would not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it, I didn't believe that could ever be true. I had such shame and just incredible shame from my life while I was using, that I couldn't even imagine not regretting the past. I couldn't imagine it. And the other one is no matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. And that is tied to being of service, right? That's tied to giving it away. That's tied to listening to other women share their inventory and talk about things that I, and that we do this together, arm in arm, right? The people who came before me and the people who come after me, we stay together and we walk no matter what is going on through it together. And so all of those promises, intuitively know how to handle a situation which used to baffle us. I mean, these were all things that were so foreign to me. And when I started to be able to pause in a situation and not say all the things that wanted to shoot out of my mouth, pause, and then see how it completely changed the outcome from what I was expecting, because I got out of the way. So that started to show me intuitively know how to handle situations, do it differently than I used to do. Taking direction and, listening to my sponsor, I mean, you know, my mom was from Kentucky and, you know, had a hard life, but man, she had the work ethic that you can't believe. So she's over here and she's called grit. My sponsor is from New York. Don't F with her even for a second. But she had such an ability to be tough and strong, but also graceful and know how to diffuse situations and connect with people in a way that was absolutely foreign to me. But here I am in sales, so I better figure that out, right? So she's over here and she's Grace. And between the two of them, those great qualities is what keeps me going. And I have Sharon's voice in my head every day. When I say things, it sounds like her. All the things that she has taught me about how to be a woman of grace and dignity and integrity and strength and softness, both can exist. And let's mix in a little humor, because I was so intense that, you know, and she could laugh at everything. And so having that guide is was amazing. That's why I say she was my sister. You know, we did everything together. We traveled together. She was with us when we got engaged, when our children were born, when we got married. I mean, we did everything together. Um, and and then I have been able to take what she taught me and say those exact same words to people in a meeting, to women that I work with, and to know that it never ends. You know, this program never ends if we continue to be of service and give it away. You know, that big book written by men, you know, what I always say 50 years ago, but I don't know, it's much more than that probably. I don't remember. But to think that I would have anything in common or be able to, you know, relate still today. And of course it does. Um, you know, there's some goofy words in there, but the the message, the feeling, you know, so we have that base that connects us all. And then we have each other that connects us all. And for me, I have a little pamphlet that says avoid playing God. It's green. I got it in AA. And that has helped me since day one. And I have another pamphlet that says just for today. And it has a few things in there. And one of them is show up, dress accordingly, talk low, act courteously. Like, what? Those, I never did any of those. But that's exactly what I had to do to show up to be an H&I 38 years ago when I helped start it. And that's how, you know, so everything I have learned is because somebody has passed it on, written it down, shared it, and that's just how it works. I I couldn't be more grateful for the life I have today and the higher power that is part of my life, and how meditation has taken that to the next level. Even if it's just 5 minutes, it is so powerful and so surprising, right? Contempt prior to investigation is something in our book, and you know, oh, I don't need to do that. Oh, how could this? And just being willing to do things and try it and see the benefits and discover amazing things on the other side. And I'm always learning. And like I said, I am not perfect. And, you know, I still struggle. And, I still wonder sometimes, like, really, God, are you out there? Like, are you on vacation? Are you busy with somebody else? Like, what's going on here? But then I get to the other side and I can look back and I go, okay, I see what I had to learn. I see the direction I had to go. And now I'm going to pull somebody else and I'm going to take them on that same journey. So it is the only way for me to keep what I have is to keep giving it away in every way possible. And I am so lucky and so grateful to be able to be in your meeting today. And thank you for asking me to share. I'm done.